In classical Hadith verification, a single missing name in a transmission chain shifts a report from a binding historical source to a technical uncertainty. As the early Islamic community transitioned from oral memory to written archives, scholars were tasked with organizing a massive, sprawling tradition into a structured legal framework. This manuscript illustrates the scale of that challenge. Thousands of reports in dense, unvoweled script required a rigorous method to navigate the vast historical record. Scholars managed this complexity through a system of probabilistic grading. They evaluated each report based on the statistical likelihood that the transmission occurred exactly as claimed. The grade of Sahih, or sound, represents the peak of the system, a perfect sequence of verified transmission that grants the report the status of historical certainty. Below this threshold sits the Da'if, or weak hadith. These are reports that remain admissible for scholarly discussion, but fall short of the evidentiary requirements needed for a Sahih classification. The Da'if label serves as a diagnostic tool. It allows an expert to pinpoint the specific technical defect that prevents a report from being used as definitive proof. Every hadith has two parts: the isnad, the human chain, and the mant, the text. Data flows from the prophet to the compiler. Specialists audit this using a 6-point dashboard: continuity, completeness, reliability, moral uprightness, and the absence of contradictions and defects. If a single one of these 6 conditions is compromised, the report's status drops. It is immediately classified as da'if. The isnad acts as a technical schematic. A weak grade indicates a specific break in the engineering of the transmission. Structural failures often begin with a lack of continuity, the first requirement of a sound hadith. A continuous chain requires proof that every narrator physically met the person they quote. Here, solid lines represent verified historical interactions. If a successor quotes the prophet directly but omits the companion who was the actual witness, a gap appears. This structural defect is called mursal. While the information being reported might be accurate, the missing link makes the source historically unverifiable. Breaks can also occur much later in the timeline. If a narrator quotes a teacher they could not have met, the chain is maktu. Regardless of where the gap occurs, these structural flaws prevent the report from yielding the certain knowledge required for high-level scholarship. A weak hadith is a failure of lineage. Without a verified handshake between every generation, the integrity of the data remains in question. Even a continuous chain can fail if the individual nodes, the narrators, are found to be deficient. To track these deficiencies, scholars built a massive biographical system called Al-Jar wa At-Ta'dil. This forensic database recorded the reputations and performance of thousands of individual transmitters. A narrator with no biographical data is labeled majhul, or unknown. Without a record, the reliability check fails and the report is marked weak. Contrast this with an honest narrator possessing a poor memory, known as Sayyi-ul-Hifz. If history shows frequent errors, their reports are downgraded. Moral character is distinct from cognitive accuracy. The science of hadith requires the narrator's hard drive, their memory, to be as reliable as their honesty. Narrator-based weakness is an audit of human capability. It demands that a witness be both truthful and precise. Weakness can also reside in the what of the report, the matn, or the text itself. The defect occurs when one reliable person narrates a story that contradicts a larger, more reliable group. Because the majority report is mathematically more likely to be accurate, the outlier is flagged as weak due to its strangeness. Another textual flaw is mudraj, or interpolation. This happens when a narrator's own explanatory notes accidentally merge with the words of the prophet in a student's transcript. Hadith experts perform a forensic untangling of these voices, comparing different manuscripts to see where the human commentary begins and the original report ends. Textual weakness proves that even a strong chain can be undermined by accidental errors in recording or phrasing. Given these strict requirements, we have to ask if a weak classification is permanent. Scholars use a form of historical triangulation called mutabi. This involves looking for independent, parallel chains of transmission for the same report. Suppose chain A has a narrator with a known poor memory, and chain B has a similar minor defect. Independently, both are weak. However, it is statistically improbable for two independent, separate chains to hallucinate the exact same complex text. When multiple chains provide independent confirmation, the overall probability of accuracy increases. This upgraded status is Hasan li Ghairihi, meaning the report is considered fair due to external support. Several weak strands can be woven into a strong cable of evidence, provided the underlying flaws are not severe, such as lying or fabrication. There is a vital distinction between a weak hadith and a fabricated report. Fabrications are discarded entirely. They are not part of the legitimate historical dataset. Because da'if hadiths contain verified human flaws, they are never used to establish core Islamic creed or aqidah. Scholars preserved these weak reports with care. Maintaining a complete map of the tradition was necessary for historical integrity, as seen in these voweled texts. A second restriction exists. Da'if reports cannot be the primary basis for law. They cannot be used to declare an action forbidden or obligatory. This restriction is based on the logic of probability. A da'if hadith represents a maybe, and a religious legal foundation requires certainty. The classification acts as a safety barrier, preventing human error from influencing the religion's core doctrines. The single exception for using weak reports is fadail al-amal, the encouragement of extra virtuous deeds, like charity or kindness. This is only permitted if the weakness is mild, and the act itself is already supported by a separate sahih hadith. Scholars are ethically bound by the rule of disclosure. When narrating a hadith, they must explicitly state if it is classified as weak. Hiding a report's weakness is considered a significant intellectual sin by the masters of the science. These classifications became a permanent part of the physical manuscript record, ensuring that future generations could see the forensic audit behind every word. The science of da'if hadith established a rigorous, transparent documentation system. It prioritized the audit of data over the preservation of narrative. Every historical claim remains permanently inseparable from its forensic proof.